Okay, this is a very unique video. I'm going to talk about being a hero and being a badass. This is actually inspired by another video or a conversation I had with somebody regarding their a video they made. But it's not a response to them. It's just something that got me thinking. Here's the secret. Okay, there's something that you need to understand. The definition of what you think a hero and what a badass isn't. This is the definition of a hero I learned in the military. Somebody who gets people killed trying to be impressive. Think about it. If you try to do something cool and impress people and show off for your friends and it gets people killed, or it puts you in a position that people get killed saving your ass, yeah, you're a hero. That's why the term hero is pretty derogatory in the military. And as far as a badass goes, I know the standard civilian definition of a badass is a tough guy, a hard ass, someone who can fight and do whatever. The military definition of a badass is someone who gets butt hurt when someone tells them they are not bulletproof Rambo. Basically it, yeah. If it hurts your feelings to know that you are not invincible, then I'm sorry, but you're not invincible. No one's invincible. I'm not invincible. Now, we're going to talk about another interesting thing here. There are 4 reactions to violence or the threat of violence in sociology and human psychology. All right, that is posture, flight, fight, submission. I'm trying to think of how would be the best, most proper way to put this, but nah. All of your violence tends to start with posturing. That's the bully coming up and saying, if you don't give me your lunch money, I'm going to punch you in the face. Okay. From that, the kid who's being bullied either responds with another posture. If you hit me, I'm going to hit you back. Or they run away from the bully and get a teacher. Something of an equalizer for the threat of violence. Or they just punch the bully in the face. That's basically the way it is. There is no middle ground between the two. And here's the thing about it. Right, if you think of this almost like a plus sign, and at the top of your plus sign you have posturing, and then down here at the bottom you have submission, and then over here on your, well, it's my left-hand side, you have flight, and on the other side you have fight. So here's what you're looking at. Submission, posturing, where everything begins. You have your flight here. We'll just call it fly for now. And then you have fight. Alright, now the interesting thing that a lot of people aren't really going to get is how easily this changes. But I'll deal with it. Alright, whenever, it doesn't matter if you're talking about a self-defense situation, martial law, shit hits the fan, without rule of law, excessive rule of law, whatever. Everything will start off with posturing. That's right up here at the top, right where my finger's at. There you go, posturing. Somebody will posture. They will brandish a weapon. That is a form of posturing. For you guys that are going all tacked out and shit and going to be running around the neighborhood all tacked out, that's a form of posturing. You're putting out a threat display. So if people find you threatening, it's your own fucking fault. It might be for your self-defense, but people are going to see it however they see it. And seeing you coming, they're either going to have 3 responses. They're going to be submissive, they're going to run from you, or they're going to fight you. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, when you think about it in the context, they can go from anything to anything. And it just depends completely on your situation. Your posturing can go to flying. Your posturing can go immediately to fight, or it can go straight down here to submission. Your fight can go to submission. You know, that's you always see the cowboy movies where they fight this big battle and then they have like a bunch of people that are dead and dying, and they're like, well, if we give up and turn ourselves in, yeah. The fight can go into posturing. You put up a good fight and you try to make the enemy think you can do a lot more than what you can to scare them into backing down because you're both on the ropes. It can go into flight. You get outgunned, outmatched, and you pull into a retreat. Likewise, your submission can be used as a ploy to draw them into a fight, or your running away as soon as you're cornered can immediately respond in you trying to be submissive, or posturing as if you're going to be able to do something, or going into, I'm cornered, fuck it, fight. It can go either way. So you got this nice little diamond here. And this nice little diamond shows you how people can potentially react. Now, this isn't a solid rule for any sort of, I guess you would say, ninja mind control or anything like that. This is simply sociology that gives you an idea of how people are going to react. There are 4 typical basic responses. Those 4 basic responses are characterized by what you do and what they do. This is basic animal body language. This is animalistic communication. This is how things are dealt with. Okay. The idea of posturing serves a purpose. It allows you to dominate the situation without actually having to use violence. Because most people can't go to that. I mean, look, it's like this. If I see you walking around all tacked out, it's not going to threaten me. Right? I was in the military. I'm kind of used to that image. It's not really going to threaten me or throw me off. However, I'm probably going to laugh at you, especially if it's something as simple as, power's out because of a windstorm. Whatever. Somebody else might see you and be threatened and go into submission mode, Whatever you say, yeah, you're in charge. Yeah, you're the alpha male. Whatever, because you got the guns and the tactical gear and shit. Somebody might see you and run from you. Somebody might see you and try to, and this is a good thing about it, somebody might be armed with, a little .22 pistol, see you, and immediately go into flight, go home, get their AK, their tactical gear, come back, and then you're going to get into a pissing contest about who's got the more guns and who's in charge and who's doing what. This is where understanding situations and human nature come into. To give you an example, I'll show you how I use this formula in a real-life situation. Years ago, I was working at McDonald's. It was like a temporary thing. I only worked there for like a couple of weeks. I just needed money real quick, and the quickest way to get it was to, work at McDonald's. Just to get that little bit extra money coming in for a little extra project I had. And as I'm backing out, the way the McDonald's is set up, in order to get to the drive-thru, you go up all the way around the parking lot and then down beside McDonald's. And there's a lane right here for the front where you park your cars in the front of McDonald's, which I was parked at to go in and get my check. And some fat guy decided, literally, I mean, he looked like the big fat comic book guy from The Simpsons. He's pulling in behind me as I'm backing out, and he just shoots in real quick, trying to cut in line to get through to keep from having to drive all the way around the parking lot and cut like 4 other cars off. And as I'm backing up, he's zooming through, and he hits his horn just in time for me to hit him. It wasn't a lot of damage. It wasn't real bad. It's just a little crunched fender. Well, I get my insurance paperwork and everything else, and I get out of the car. And I'm calm. And this guy jumps out of the car, slams the door, and says, "Look what you did to my car. I ought to beat your ass." Now, I understand the whole idea of posture. He was trying to get me to be submissive because he was bigger than me, even though there wasn't too much to it. And I calmly turned around, looked at him, and calmly said, "Look, we can either act like grown-ass men, or I can stomp you into a blood stain right here on the pavement." He jumps back in his car, gets on the cell phone, calls the police because I threatened him. I'm standing there with the insurance and registration, everything else in my hand for us to exchange insurance, let insurance deal with it. And because he was threatening to me and I threatened him back, he postured, so I counter-postured. The difference in the two was he was trying to be all excited and emotional, and he was letting his emotions control him, and I was calm. that calm threw him off. I'm not going to get too much into how this can roll out and everything else, but basically we ended up exchanging insurance information because I gave him an out. If he would have said, you know, I ought to beat your ass, and I would have jumped up and said, I'm going to kill you, and then he would have jumped into his car, and I would have been kicking the door and trying to get him out, I would have pushed him into a corner. He would have had no other choice but to fight me or to run away. Instead, I gave him an out. I said, you know, we can be grown-ass men. We can be adults about this and exchange insurance information. Or we can fight if that's what you want. So instead of me backing down from him, because I removed the flight and submission options, I gave him the choice of either fight or meet me halfway. Between fight and submission, we exchange our information and we go about things as an adult. See, this is a little bit of a sliding scale. Now, it worked. We exchanged insurance information. My insurance called me like a week later, and I dealt with all that stuff. It was just cheaper for them to rule it as my word against his, and a no fault on who did what. But you do understand something. Now that little for response curriculum comes down to this. There are three types of violence. All three types of violence use that little force curriculum to a small extent. Okay, the first one you have is a fight. This would be social violence. It is the threat or act of violence to, which is essentially mock violence, to achieve social dominance. Okay, a guy hitting you because you're looking at his girl. That's social violence. And bear in mind, this is not a simple thing. This is a big gray area. I'm just pointing out a few little black and white specks in the midst of all the gray. The idea of social violence is someone retaining that alpha male dominant status and doing so with the threat or use of violence. I dealt with this a lot when I was in jail. It was pretty much understood, if you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone, but I don't get scared. And I wasn't going to put myself in a situation tactically where I was going to be fighting 4 guys in a fucking cell. If you wanted to fight me and jump me all at one time, you're going to do it right in the middle where everyone can see. Because allowing them to corner me into the cell would change it from a mock fight of social violence to creating a self-defense situation or a basic street fight where they're trying to kill me and I'm trying to kill them. Well, this is where our second area of curriculum comes in at. The street fight is third. Is you have criminal violence. Okay, this is a self-defense situation. This is when you are defending from the criminal attempt of a person to use violence or the threat of violence to take away your physical property. And bear in mind, there's no more there's no more substantial physical property than your body. But that being said, criminal violence is the situation where you are defending from someone trying to harm you. If someone is trying to kill you, that is a self-defense situation. Someone's trying to rape you, that is a self-defense situation. Someone's trying to mug you, that is a self-defense situation. If the shit has hit the fan and somebody's trying to break into your house and steal your beans, that is a self-defense situation because you are defending from violence. Now, then you come into combative violence. This would be what I consider a street fight. This is combat. This is Iraq and Afghanistan. This is the Balkans at the fall of the Soviet Union. A street fight or combative violence is 2 individuals with the mutual agreement to kill the other person. I'm going to kill you. You're going to try to kill me. We both know it. It's going to happen. So we're going to use whatever tactics, methods, whatever it is we think we have that we can to do so. And now, remember me mentioning that this, that's right. I originally came up, I wanted to do this video because I had been talking with someone who was going on and on and on about their training as law enforcement, their training as security. Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret here. It's a secret that's going to freak a lot of you out. Training doesn't account for shit. Think I'm wrong? Okay. What is the difference between a Green Beret Special Ops guy and a private straight out of basic training? Now, you might say, well, they're special forces and they have all this elite training. Wrong. They're special forces and they have all this experience. All U.S. Army Special Forces are recruited from the NCO Corps of the military. They come from corporals at the lowest, which is hard to make it to SF selection as a corporal, sergeants. You have to have PLDC under your belt. You have to have the what they call the personal leadership. Well, I think they trained it now. It used to be the personal leadership development course. Now it's the oh God, what is it? The combat leadership development course, CLDC instead of PLDC. Same thing, either way. You have to have the ability to lead. You have to be trained to be a leader. You have to be willing to work on your own. The first rule of leadership in the Army is to be technically and tactically proficient. So before you can be a leader, you must know your job, so you can make sure the guys under you do their job, because sergeants train their privates. Okay, this is what you don't understand. Training is great. Experience is better. Given a choice between training and experience wins every time. Okay, a trained person with no experience, a tactical civilian against a violent criminal who has experience being violent, being the victim of violence, is going to, the situation is going to favor the violent criminal. I don't care what martial art you study. I don't care what kind of training you got. I don't care if you learned, from a Navy SEAL, whoever. It doesn't matter how badass the person is who taught you. It matters your level of experience. If you don't know shit about violence other than you went to a course that taught you how to tactically shoot your M4 carbine, and it was done by a Navy SEAL, cool. If you learned to do it from a Special Forces Green Beret, great. The problem is that person made it to get that elite training based on their ability to use basic skills, their proficiency at basic skills, and the fact that they were taught to be a leader, to teach and condition others to use those basic skills. All right, a sergeant in the Army uses the same skills as a private. They both practice marksmanship, the same principles of marksmanship and everything else. The same basic principles of marksmanship for an 11 Bravo dumb grunt like me are the same principles of marksmanship for a high-speed Marine Force Recon Scout Sniper. The difference is that Scout Sniper is more proficient at those skills, due in part, yes, to training, but also due in part to the experience of using that training. There's a difference in the two. This is why reality-based martial arts systems, or reality-based self-defense systems, I should say, in military training involves a lot of mock combat. The idea is to simulate experience. You can have that level of training, but there's a difference between training and the real thing. There's a difference between mock combat and real combat. A tactical civilian versus a veteran. That veteran has a lot more experience at going through the motions, even if they don't have any combat experience, of going through the motions, of being put in situations where they have to adapt and adopt that training to create mock experience, to give them an advantage. Then said tactical civilian who took a 5-day course or 3-day course and thinks they're badass bulletproof Rambo. Experience will always trump. And given the choice between that veteran with no combat experience and that violent criminal most likely, because they have experience at being violent, will trump the veteran with no combat experience. And you know what? There's veterans who have combat experience, who have a lot of experience at violence, at being shot at, having people try to kill them, everything else. And that experience compounds with their training to advance them further in that ability to use and understand what they're doing. Training is great. Experience is better. Never forget that. This was the little debate I had with this other individual. He gets up there talking about, well, you have to have supply and combo and numbers and training. Well, here's the problem: if you have numbers and those numbers are untrained, or they have no experience, those numbers don't account for shit. If those numbers have training but they don't have experience, you're looking at a bunch of basic training privates trying to wage war, and they have no experience and no knowledge of how to deal with things. It's just one of those things. You have to have experience at applying your training. If you don't, that training, it's a book stop. It's a pretty little certificate. You have to use what you know. Now, for the guys who are against combat sports, I give MMA an advantage in certain things. Okay, the MMA fighters, the tournament fighters, the sports guys, they have experience at applying their techniques against a living resisting opponent. That covers a lot more than training against a non-resisting opponent. I do agree with that. But at the same time, a street fighter, just some dumb schmuck off the street, might have a lot more experience at applying violence than that tournament fighter. And their type of violence can be completely different. That tournament fighter is used to social violence, trying to achieve dominance and respect through competition. They're not trying to kill the other person. The guy they get into a fight with in a bar might be trying to kill someone or them and use a knife, or a gun, or a beer bottle, or any other wide variety of force multipliers. Hollywood isn't a good example, but to give you an idea of what I'm talking about here, think of the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze versus, Bloodsport. The difference in the Bloodsport tournament and the violence that Swayze was dealing with is kind of the difference between that idea of social violence and that criminal intent of combative violence. Just to give you an idea here. So every time you think about your tactical ninja, your bulletproof Rambo hero fantasy, in a shit hits the fan situation without rule of law or whatever else, just remember, experience trumps training. Do not underestimate your enemy. Do not underestimate the people who are a threat to you, and do not overestimate yourself as being unstoppable simply because you have a battle rifle and a friggin' tactical vest, and you look sharp and scary and threatening, but in reality, you don't have the experience to back it up. And some of you, you might have the training to back it up, and that gives you an advantage against the untrained and inexperienced. But there's always that experienced predator out there that's just going to eat you alive.